Well, my name is Ernest Wojahn, spelled W-O-J-A-H-N, right? And I was born on a farm in Cottonwood County, southern Minnesota, down by Windom, W-I-N-D-O-M. It's the county seat of Cottonwood County.
This is our family when I was growing up. Eleanor was the oldest, and of course she's gone already now. Eleanor and me and Bob, Melvin, Wilbur, Carolyn, and Orville. And there's brother Bob, and he's gone. This was their confirmation. This is some of the other pictures. This is sort of a unique one here. I don't know if you can get it on there or not. Eleanor's when we were little.
How old were you then?
Oh, I was in the middle there. So I was probably, it says 43, so I would have been just 11.
Who was the most important person in my life? Well, of course, my parents. Basically, you get your, I think you get your part of your worth ethic from them and what they've trained you to do. And you have to cooperate with them in order to get your education. You're dependent on them, basically. You didn't go running off off on the farm. I mean, you had your work to do, or if you want to call it work, especially when you get older. And I enjoyed working on the farm. Basically, when I was younger, I had to work in the garden, or feed the ducks, or feed the chickens, or that type of thing, besides the homework, housework, you know. When I was a little kid, my mother had a combination stove, you know. You had wood, burned wood on one side, and they had gas on the other side, you know. It came in from a tank outside the house. And when we were older, then Dad had an old building that he used to, when we'd shell the corn from see, in those days they didn't have the picker shellers like they do nowadays. They had you brought the corn in from a picker and put it in the corn crib. Later on, then you'd shell it in the spring or whatever you do. If you'd grind some up for feed for the cattle or the hogs, and you'd save the cobs, and the cobs would be used for fuel. One of my jobs was to always keep the cob box filled, or put wood in there, so Mother could put a warm fire in the morning in the stove, because you didn't have central heat like you had nowadays. We had a pot-bellied stove in the dining room in our old house. Later on, then Dad got a furnace, of course, and other things, but not when I was growing up. You know, your church was a social outlet too. Probably not as important as your parents, I think. And then, of course, when we were little kids, Robert was an innovator. He liked to make little toys, because we didn't have a lot of toys that we could play out in the grove with. So we used to actually play out in the grove and make little farms out in the grove. In the spring of the year, when we'd have the haymow cleaned out, so we could add an old basketball thing up there, and Bob and would like to play basketball out there. And I was never as good a basketball player, but you know, the rest of them were. Another fun thing we did, and Dad didn't like it, we would make straw houses 2 or 3 levels high, you know, and then we would play tag and that type of thing in it, and you know, sort of like a search and rescue type of thing, or something like that. It was really that, but it was a way we could do it. And Dad didn't like it because it would mess the hay and the straw up, you know, but it all went down anyway. And so those were things we did. Years later, I used to pitch old horseshoes with Bob. You know, he was a pretty good pitcher. They didn't have the newer horseshoes that we have now. You know, he had the old ones that were horses actually used. You know, and we'd have a horseshoe thing in the lawn, and we'd go out and play horseshoe in the evening. My dad was a fiddler, you know. He played the violin. He must have played in dance bands when he was young. And other things, you know, when they'd have parties or something. And his cousin had a concertina, so he went and bought it one time.
thinking maybe somebody would want to play it, so I took it up. I started ordering music from this music store and taught myself how to play it. And I used to just look at the instruments and I'd find 3, 12. That's what I would do. Because this is the melody side, see?
Oh, is it?
I just go like this. And you push and pull and you get different notes. That's the hard part about this. You get different notes when you push and you pull. And you got to know when to push and pull.
Was everybody covering their ears when you were starting to learn that?
Well, I used to sit out in the front porch and play it. and that was, no, it was, so then I used to spend lots of time sitting and playing. Here's your music you read, see? Like there. And gives you the time. The top note is the melody line, just like it does it. And then it gives you what to play on the bottom. Then you're pulling out, and then you have to push in again. And you have to, the way the music has to be written, it has to be written so you can do that. Otherwise, you have to get your own instrument. See, this lets music in and out. You're manually working this instrument yourself by pushing in. This is how you get air in, so you can push in and pull out. You're using your arms to make the instrument work. But you can also be extemporaneous and play it the way you want to sometimes. I'm at the top of the first note line. There's the second line. Doubles it up then. Line here goes with that other stuff. And you see two different numbers, and then you're getting a contrasting note. And then here's that melodic chorus group. And then when you see this X like that, that means repeat.
Oh.
And then up here, when there's no little divvy up the top, that means push in. When there's no divvy, then it means pull out. If I were playing this and chording and pushing and pulling out, it sounds terrible. But if you sound this, then it's a G chord. It's not a G chord here because this is a B flat instrument. This is written in the key of G, you know, here. But so it's really in the key. It's really being played in the key of F because this is a step down because this is the B flat instrument. So that's the way it goes on.
Dad was a no-nonsense type person. He didn't talk very much, but he was a worker. Had to keep things going. You know, he was more or less a manager after we grew up enough to do the work. You know, kept things, knew what to do and that type of thing because he kept all of us busy as we were teenagers. I mean, we used to go out and bale straw for people because it took 3 people to do it. Mel often would drive the tractor, and Rob would run the left-hand side of the baler where you poke the wires through, and I would sit on the other side with leather gloves on and tie them. You know, we'd come home all covered with dust. So yeah, it was funny. So it was not an easy job, but we did it. Other things we did, of course, at home we had all the work at home with the cattle and the hogs and the chickens and the ducks. Mom would usually raise about 300 chickens a year. And then had to collect the eggs, and she'd sell the eggs, of course, that we didn't use. You know, with 5 kids in the family. When I was little, there were 5 of us. Eleanor was the oldest, and Melvin and Robert and me, and then Wilbur and Orville, and then Carolyn came along later. So it was a busy household.
What was your mother like?
Well, she was a very good cook, organized in the house, kept working all the time. I think she was very, very good at organizing things too. You know, she always had dinner for us, and regardless of what time we come in. Sometimes you wouldn't eat until 8 o'clock at night. If you were out doing some work out in the field, somebody'd bring lunch out to you. We didn't take your own lunch along. Well, especially on Sunday, we'd always have sort of a macaroni hot dish type of thing, you know, with ground beef in it and that type of thing. One thing I liked especially was when she'd make this big pan sheet with a chocolate and then put whipped cream in it and roll it up, a chocolate roll up or something like that. I don't know what it was called, but that was one of the favorites. And then sometimes she'd put a little, you know, cherries or something inside it. But we'd have roast duck, because one thing my dad liked to do, he would get a mallard drake, you know, a wild mallard drake, and he would cross that with the domestic ducks, the hens, and he liked that as better meat for ducks, because duck was a delicacy for us. She'd often make a couple ducks on Thanksgiving or something like that. We didn't have turkey. Often things that were grown ourselves, you know.
What was your best memory of childhood?
I think the old apple tree behind the cob shed was, those apples would get, they would get ripe the first, the ones that we could eat. So we'd climb up that tree and try to get some of those. I just always liked apples. Never can get enough apples, I don't think. And I was just reading it from a physician's book. 3 apples a day is about the best for you to keep the doctor away. Not only 1 apple a day, but 3 apples a day.
Really?
And I don't even eat that. I don't even get that quota.
Really?
No.
That's interesting.
You know why I didn't want to do this by myself now?
Why is that?
I wouldn't have the strength to dig this out.
Teachers were important too as you went to school and that type of thing. You know, a good student at school. After high school, I had signed up to go to business school in Mankato. And so, see, that was really probably the first time that I went away from home. Then that only lasted a month because Mel had an accident, a car accident. And so I had to go home and help that whole year. And so, and then the next year I went back to the school again and finished my course. And then after that I was drafted into the Army. So, see, I went in in 1953 and took my basic in Georgia. And basically I was on my own in a sense with other people when I left Fort Sheridan in Illinois. There were only about 7 of us that went down there to that base for basic training. Although I did end up in a headquarters company down there because of my business school. I stayed until October. And then they sent me up to Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, where I took a radio course. It was a long ways over there. 10 days on the troop ship going across the pond, and then into Busan, Korea, which is the southern tip, and then a railroad train all the way up to Seoul. And in August of that year, then they signed the ceasefire in connection with North Korea and South Korea. And I never thought that I'd ever get over to South Korea. I was only a 2-year man. When you're drafted, you only got 2 years. I wasn't going to plan to stay any more than 2 years. They weren't going to talk me into anything else. I got assigned to a radio team over in Korea. There were about maybe 6 or 7 guys on the team, and I was one of the operators in a van. So we just kept in contact with our home base, and there was no people up there. There were very few people up in that area of the Central Korea where we were. We did pull a fluke one day. We set up an intercom into our tents, and we decided we were going to scare the other guys and tell them that the rats were coming. And of course, we told him afterwards that it was just a scare, so it didn't last long. But it woke him up. See, when I was in the Army, rather than spend all my money, since I only got, what, $78 or something like that a month, I sent 50 home every month. And I thought, I don't need any money. So why should I keep that money if otherwise somebody always either begs it off of you or tries to gamble it off you or something. And so I was not going to play dumb, and I always had that money around that other people couldn't either borrow or cheat you out of. So I sent it home. Told my dad to put it in my bank account. When I got home, then I bought a car, a Chevy Power Glide, 53, and paid cash for it too. The Army was what got me off the farm, because Dad said, you know, what are you going to do after you get done? You know, and I told him, well, I got the GI Bill, might as well go up and try something else. So I signed up to go to the University of Minnesota, and they accepted me up there at General College.
I was wondering, how did you meet Mom?
How did I meet Mom? Well, I had been working with Northwest Airlines for a number of years, and I had taken a trip over to Hawaii, and I took a tour and went to the 4 islands, you know, big island of Hawaii, and of course Oahu, which is where Honolulu is, and then the other 2 islands were Maui and Kauai. The church I was going to, or was a member of over at the university, she used to come over on Sunday nights to a program. Well, one night they had a Hawaiian night, and I thought I should go. So I went to that, and she happened to be there, and we sat across the table from each other, so we got to meet each other. And of course, being I had been to Hawaii, she thought that was pretty special. I imagine we had a lively conversation and that type of thing.
And what I heard was my sister I knew went to Europe, but I think before that she and Ern had been dating. See, and I didn't really know that. I didn't know this guy. But I think Ernest was the bachelor who was unattached.
At that time, I was probably more or less fancy-free, even though I used to date other girls as well. I asked her for a date too.
And so Joanne thought, well, he's still unattached, so I'm going to Europe. Bye-bye.
And she said, gee, why don't you go along over? After we had dated a number of times. And I thought, no way, I did not want to go there because I haven't seen lots of the United States yet.
And so she went. This is just little bits that I heard, so I might not have the story correct. She went to Europe. She was supposed to be gone 1 month. To my mother's dismay, she was gone 3. She thought, no reason to hurry home. There's no one there that's really, you know, that I've latched onto. She was going to stay in Germany quite a bit. That was going to be her staying place because we had a foreign exchange student, Karen Dickel, who was from Frankfurt, Germany. But they really became a little anti-American during that time. And so Joanne decided I'm not staying in Germany as much as I thought I was going to. So she wandered off all over parts of the Middle East, Mediterranean, Europe. Am I right?
Yeah.
She was all over. And why hurry home? Because nobody was, you know, tugging at her to come home.
How did you know she was the one?
Oh, I didn't.
Little did she know when she got back to Germany at the American Embassy, I think I understand there were all kinds of letters from Ernest.
She said I wrote to her in Europe, but I don't believe that. Later on, then, after she came back, I had a chance to go down and meet her parents.
And that was it. They were engaged, and then they were married.
So
because she wanted to have it her way, you know, which is natural, I guess. At least get some furniture that I didn't have. When your kids were little, I took care of you sometimes in the weekends when your mom wanted to go to work. She says, I never called if I needed help. If your mom was sewing, then it was my turn to take care of the kids or take them out someplace so that she could do the work.
Have you ever experienced any miracles?
Sure. Yes. I remember one time when little Amy got her finger caught in a playpen type thing. She got her finger caught in there and it was miraculously healed next day.
You always were really good at taking us to the park and going on walks and going to the zoo and stuff.
Right.
That you excelled in that area. Well, I thought you always been a good dad.
Well, appreciate that. Yes. We appreciate you kids too. Cousin I was close to. She was just a sweet girl. She played the piano. I like playing piano. She's the one who had to be on kidney dialysis for 12 years. And it was her mom and dad I went to live with in Mankato for a while before I found another place to live. So, yeah, that was hard. I think she was only, I don't think she made it to her 60th birthday. No. We used to go down to Rochester to see her those last months before she passed away. And then see her husband was Dick, you know, Dick Ikers. And him and I had a birthday and he's always 1 year older than I. So he just passed away last year. So we've been keeping in touch with Kathy, their daughter, and she was the only girl in their family. And remember, we used to stop and see them on the way back from Windom when we'd go down and see Mom. We were there that night that they landed on the moon and Doug was born, you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Stopped to see them that night. Well, I'm now 72 years old and still young enough. Go riding bicycle or whatever. Bicycle riding is one of my favorite things to do. You can cover a lot of ground that way. Like the trip with Damien last summer. We went up on the bike trail.
You enjoyed that?
Well, he wasn't prepared for it, but I was. He had never done it before. Gone 25 miles, are you kidding? And so we started from Siren, and that's gives us about a 25-mile bike ride up to Danbury, and then another 8 miles or so into the camp. Scott and I were pedaling along pretty good, but every once in a while Damien would have to get up with his bike and stand up and pedal, you know, because he didn't have his high gear. We made it by 12 o'clock, which is the afternoon open house time, and enjoyed the camp. So I think Damien enjoyed it too. Maybe you should get a little footage from him sometime and get his impressions of it.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
How was the ride, Damien?
Not bad.
On a scale of 1 to 10.
-2.
It was a opportunity for him to try out his bike on a long distance ride. Well, we've lived in Little Canada since '98. We moved up there in '98, November 11th, '98. So it was just 6 years. And of course, Hank lived with us as Mark's grandma, and she's down in Iowa now at the Vinton Luther home, down where Steve and Cheryl live.
Sounds like family's pretty important to you.
Well, they are. If you don't have time for family, of course, nowadays, you know, now with the new grandkids coming, that makes a big difference.
I see you. Oh, it's Maddie. You're the...
Give me the description again. January. Actually, this one's not
There goes. 1, 2, 3, up.
So what are the most important things you've learned in life?
Well, I think responsibility is one of the big ones, you know. Being honest is another, you know, and treating other people like you want to be treated too is important, you know. In some cases, taking the initiative.
What things do you value most right now?
I suppose the health that I've got, you know, at my age. I'm lucky to have lived so long and only been in the hospital probably once or twice.
Tell me about your illness.
It's called multiple myeloma, and it is a blood plasma problem. Particular way it was detected was just in a normal blood test, apparently. Only 1% of the people who have cancer get this. Fortunately for me, it got caught at an early stage, and the best stuff I can do for it is take those pills right now. And they just give me 4 pills, 4 days a month. And that's all I have to take to maintain it, apparently. And I'm hopeful. My grandma was 102 before she had to go to the hospital. And she died the following April after that. So we got longevity both in my mother's side, whose dad was 95, and my dad's side, whose mother was 102. Attitude is 90% of your life. If you don't have a positive attitude, you're probably really going to be in the doldrums. Well, religion has always been important to me. I became a Christian when I was confirmed. I've always felt close that, you know, God is the healer, and He is has the power to do it if He so chooses. And I've been prayed over, but that doesn't mean that you know, He does it miraculously all the time. I mean, I think God can do things the way He wants to in His own time, whatever His will is. I mean, if He made this wonderful world we live in, and He made each of us, that's a lot. He gives us the trees out there to work on, the ingenuity to do things. And granted, it isn't all perfect, but there is a powerful thing there that God can do. No, I've always enjoyed religion and what it's done for me in my life, and the belief that Jesus is my Savior. And when I'm no longer able to take care of myself, I'll go live with Him. So that's the best part of my life.
So it sounds like you believe in the afterlife.
Oh, definitely. Right. Yeah. Definitely there's going to be a rejoicing together.
Sounds like you can't wait.
Well, some ways you can't. It's the best part. Okay.
Whoop, there we go.
But it's happy music, you know,
That's the fun of it.
and I like the concertina.